Information is often called the most expensive commodity in the world. Yet the most valuable secrets aren't always locked inside boardrooms or encrypted servers. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, wearing an apron. Preston Calloway, self-proclaimed wolf of 57th Street, was a man who knew the price of everything and the value of nothing. At 42, he was a managing partner of Calloway & Associates, a hedge fund that had just posted a 24% annual return while the rest of the market bled red. He wore navy Brioni suits that cost more than compact cars and laughed like every room already belonged to him. On a Tuesday at 1:15 p.m., the sacred power hour in Manhattan's financial district, Preston sat at the best table inside Le Jardin, the most pretentious French bistro within 10 blocks. The air smelled of truffles, aged cognac, and ambition. "I'm telling you," Preston said, swirling Pinot Noir in a crystal glass, "Rutherford Logistics is desperate. We buy their debt at 20 cents on the dollar, convert to equity, and own the Northeast supply chain. It's free money." Across from him sat Brad Sterling, ambitious, insecure, and Tom Miller, the MIT quant whose pale skin suggested a long-term allergy to sunlight. "It feels too easy," Tom muttered. Their Q3 earnings were awful, but the stock's holding steady. Someone supporting it. "Retail investors," Preston scoffed. "Dumb money." He snapped his fingers without looking up. "Garçon, more wine." The garçon was Sarah. Sarah Jenkins was 34. Dark circles framed sharp, intelligent eyes. Her uniform was slightly oversized, her non-slip shoes worn thin. She had been on her feet 6 hours, already. No one at Table 4 knew she held a master's degree in applied mathematics. No one knew she had once rung the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Brad leaned back, smirking. "Hey, President, if this deal is so obvious, let's test it." Preston raised an eyebrow. "How?" Brad gestured at Sarah. "Ask the help. If she thinks it's a buy, it's too mainstream. If she's never heard of it, we're golden." They called it the contraindicated game. If regular people liked the stock, they shorted it. Preston rotated his chair, blocking Sarah's path. "Excuse me, sweetheart," he said smoothly. "Billion-dollar question. If you had $10 million, would you buy Rutherford Logistics?" Sarah froze. Her rent in Queens was overdue. Her father's medical bills stacked like snowdrifts. One complaint from a VIP like Preston, and she'd be unemployed by dinner. "I'm just a waitress," she said quietly. "Just a guess," Preston pressed. "Buy or sell?" Brad snickered. "She'd buy lottery tickets." Something changed in Sarah's expression, a subtle tightening of the jaw. She glanced at the glossy prospectus spread across the table. Then she spoke. "I wouldn't touch Rutherford with your money, let alone mine." Silence. Preston blinked. "Excuse me? You're reading Q3 filings under GAAP?" Sarah said, pointing at the document. "But check footnote D4 on page 114. Their pension obligations assume an 8.5% return. The market average is 5. They're masking a liquidity crisis." Tom's fingers froze above his tablet. "And there's a union poison pill clause triggered by change of control. If you acquire 51%, you trigger an immediate $400 million payout to the pension fund. You're not buying supply chain. You're buying a stylized bankruptcy." No one laughed. Brad's mouth hung open. Tom stared at the page. Preston slowly lowered his wine glass. "Who are you?" he asked. But Sarah's courage evaporated as quickly as it appeared. "I'm just a waitress," she whispered, retreating toward the kitchen. The limousine ride back to Hudson Yards was suffocatingly silent. Tom hunched over his laptop, pulling the raw SEC 10K. "She's right," he finally whispered. "Pension assumption, 8.5%, and a union addendum from 98. Change of control triggers a $420 million payout." "420, Brad croaked. "She did it in her head," Tom said. Preston felt cold. He had been hours away from wiring a $50 million deposit. "Turn the car around," Preston barked. When he stormed back into Le Jardin, the maitre d' stiffened. "The waitress," Preston demanded. "Her shift ended," Henri replied nervously. "Sarah Jenkins." Preston slapped $2,000 on the podium. "Address?" Henri hesitated, then lowered his voice. She reads forensic accounting textbooks on break. Debt collectors sometimes come looking for her. Debt collectors? Preston returned to his car thoughtful. No one that brilliant ends up serving steak unless something catastrophic happened. He hired his private investigator. 3 days later, the file arrived. Sarah Jenkins wasn't real. Her name was Sarah Sterling, daughter of Arthur Sterling, the disgraced Ponzi architect whose collapse 5 years earlier had rocked Wall Street. But here was a twist. She wasn't his accomplice, the investigator said. She was his head of risk management. And the whistleblower. Preston stared at the photo of a younger, Sarah ringing the NYSE bell. She tried to stop him, the investigator continued. He buried her reports. When the firm collapsed, he framed her. Charges didn't stick, but Wall Street blacklisted her. Assets frozen. Reputation destroyed. The ghost had a past, and she had saved him. Preston found her in a fourth-floor walk-up in Astoria. Rain slicked the sidewalks. Go away. Her voice crackled over the intercom. I'm here to pay, he replied. Inside her apartment, bare, modest, exhausted, he offered her a $50,000 check. She refused. I hate bad math, she said. Not because I wanted a tip. Then Preston showed her something else, a trading chart from his fund. Someone's front-running my positions, he admitted. I need your eyes. She studied the graph for 10 seconds. It's not a leak, she said quietly. It's your clearinghouse. Apex rerouted you through a Jersey dart pool. Someone tagged your broker ID and is scalping your order flow. Preston stared at her. Come work for me. No, $20,000 a month. Cash, and I'll fund lawyers to clear your name. She hesitated. I work from here, she said. I don't wear suits. And I don't talk to Brad. Deal. For 3 weeks, Sarah lived a double life. By day, she poured wine. By night, she was the invisible architect behind Callaway's trades. She predicted commodity swings, detected merger whispers from private jet flight logs. The fun soared. But inside Hudson Yards, tension brewed. Brad hated the mystery consultant, overruling his calls. Then the attack came. The screens bled red. Someone was dumping massive blocks of every stock Callaway held. A coordinated bear raid, Tom whispered. We're down $40 million in 3 minutes. Preston's phone rang. Sarah, call me now. On speaker, her voice was calm but fast. They're using your father's doomsday algorithm, she said. The one built to hunt liquidity and trigger margin collapses. My father is dead, Preston said. His code isn't. Can you stop it? No, but we can break it. And that was when everything truly began. The trading floor Callaway and Associates had transformed into a battlefield. Red numbers cascaded down the massive central screens. Techcom, Solaris, Biogen, every major position they held was under assault. Blocks of stock were being dumped with mechanical precision. It's a billion-dollar attack, Tom said, pale. They're targeting our portfolios specifically. Preston hit speakerphone. Sarah, we're bleeding. I see it, she replied, keyboard clicking in the background. It's not random. The sell orders are routing through a Cayman shell, but the signal origin is Midtown. Who? Preston demanded. She paused. The code, signature. It's identical to my father's doomsday algorithm. The room went silent. That algorithm was designed to crush resistance, she continued. It hunts liquidity. It forces margin calls. If this continues for an hour, you're insolvent. Brad ran a hand through his hair. So we hedge. We retreat. No, Sarah snapped. We swim upstream. Speak English. Brad barked. They're shorting everything you own, Sarah explained rapidly. So we don't sell, we buy. Tom stared at Preston. We're out of cash. Use the leverage, Sarah said. The algorithm is greedy. If it senses resistance, it doubles down, borrows more to sell more. If we hold the line long enough, it'll overextend and implode. That's suicide, Brad protested. Preston looked at the screens. 40 million gone. 50. 60. He remembered the hallway that smelled like boiled cabbage. the woman who had lost everything and still spoke the truth. How much? Preston asked quietly. Everything, Sarah said. Your reserves, personal accounts, become the wall. Tom swallowed. Preston, that's your retirement. Do it. Capital flooded into buy side. So Laris hovered at $40. $39.98. $39.95. The algorithm hammered them with sell orders. Hold, Sarah whispered through the phone. Volume bar spike black. It's doubling down. Brad shouted. Sell before we hit zero. Look at the spread, Sarah countered. It's naked shorting, selling shares it doesn't have. Preston gripped the table. Now what? We squeeze it. Tom, dump the Cayman reserve, Preston ordered. That's $100 million. Now. The money hit the market. The price snapped. $40.50. $41.20. $43. The graph shot upward like a rocket. It's panicking. Tom yelled. The algo has to buy back shares to cover. We're bleeding it dry. Red turned green. Cheers erupted outside the glass walls. For minutes later, they were up $200 million. Preston exhaled, collapsing into his chair. You just made us kings. Not yet, Sarah said quietly. What? The kill command. What about it? The cancel signal latency was 0. Tom frowned. That's impossible. Exactly, Sarah replied. 0 latency means the command originated inside your local network. The room went still. The person running the attack, she said, is in the building. Preston slowly turned. Tom was celebrating with analysts. Secretaries hugged. Brad stood by the window, back to the room, frantically typing on his phone. Brad, Preston said. Brad turned, smile brittle. Hell of a rally, huh? Sarah, Preston said evenly, traced the terminal ID. I already did, she replied. Terminal 4, assigned to Brad Sterling. Brad's smile died. You tried to bankrupt the firm, Preston said calmly. Trigger margin calls. Buy assets cheap through backers. You were reckless. Brad exploded. Listening to a waitress, a criminal's daughter. I bought the algorithm. Brad sneered. From C's Sterling drives. Ultimate weapon. And you can't prove. I forwarded the logs to the SEC and FBI Cybercrime Division, Sarah interrupted. They're entering your lobby now. Down below, red and blue lights reflected against the Hudson Yards glass. Brad's shoulders sagged. As agents escorted him away, he whispered, It was just business. No, Preston replied quietly. It was theft. The aftermath wasn't celebration. It was excavation. Regulators combed through servers. News vans camped outside. The Doomsday Algo became front-page scandal. But Preston focused on one thing, clearing Sarah's name. He hired the most ruthless litigators in Manhattan and handed them a blank check. Sarah endured 40 hours of depositions. She relived her father's betrayal, the public shame, the blacklisting. But this time she wasn't alone. With forensic data from Brad's attack, they proved the algorithm had been modified after she left Sterling Hawk. They traced whistleblower reports she had filed. They exposed how Arthur Sterling buried them. On a rainy Tuesday in November, the SEC vacated her lifetime ban, issued a formal apology, unfroze what remained of her assets. Sarah Sterling was no longer a ghost. 6 months later, spring softened Manhattan's edges. Preston stood outside the Jardin beneath its golden awning. He looked different, less shark, more human. Inside, the restaurant had changed. Warm lighting, jazz. Staff moved confidently, not fearfully. Good evening, Mr. Calloway. The hostess smiled. He sat at table 4. Still drinking Pinot Noir? A voice asked behind him. He stood. Sarah. No apron. No exhaustion. She wore a Taylor cream suit. Hair cut sharp. Posture unshakable. You look incredible, Preston said. I look expensive, she corrected with a smirk. You bought the place, he realized, looking around. And the building, she replied. I'm the landlord, too. Henri. it turned out, had face health violations and labor investigations, carefully documented during Sarah's months of invisibility. He sold. I pay my staff $25 an hour, she said. Benefits, profit sharing. If a customer disrespects them, they're asked to leave, even billionaires. Point taken, Preston smiled. Dinner passed with conversation about markets and reform. Then Preston placed a thick folder on the table. I dissolved Callaway and Associates this morning. She blinked. You had $4 billion under management. I don't want to run a casino anymore, he said. I want to build, fix distressed companies instead of gutting them. He slid the document toward her. A partnership agreement. 50-50 equity split. At the top, Sterling and Callaway. You put my name first, she whispered. Alphabetical order. He lied softly. She studied it. For 5 years, Sterling had meant fraud. Now it meant oxygen. I have conditions, she said. Of course. No glass towers. We work out of the Brooklyn brownstone I bought. It has a garden. Done. We hire hungry analysts. State schools. Uber drivers. The invisible ones. Agreed. And you never ask me for financial advice as a joke again. Preston raised his hand solemnly. From now on, I ask because I'm terrified of being wrong. She signed with a cheap plastic pen. You were right about one thing that day, she said, standing. What's that? Information is the most expensive commodity on earth. She met his eyes. But redemption, she added softly, that's priceless. They shook hands. Outside, Manhattan's lights flickered on one by one. Preston Callaway had walked into a restaurant looking for entertainment. He walked out with humility. Sarah Sterling proved that your current station in life does not define your potential. She went from invisible waitress to partner in a billion-dollar firm, not by changing who she was, but by forcing the world to see her value. And in a city built on noise and ego, the most powerful move turned out to be simple. Listen, because sometimes the person refilling your water glass might be the one who saves your empire.